what's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Man, what a Masters that was. That was just unbelievable. We got a full house today. We got 10 of you guys to go over. Just remember, I won't be in town next Sunday. So if you do submit these, it's going to be about a 2-week lead time at the very least. So if you want to submit some swings to me, info@liongolfacademy.com, and face on down the line would work wonders. And any information you have to help you. Let's see who's in the house real quick. What a Masters. That's me. And you have to forgive me. I just came from a neighborhood friend of ours, and we had some plum wine. So if I go over some stuff many times, I'm blaming it on the plum wine. Amazing. Love the emotion when he made the putt on the playoff hole. Yes, that is just unbelievable. I know he's got that monkey off his back. I've never seen Rory this emotional after a win. He finally secured the Masters win and a Grand Slam. Yeah. I was almost in tears when I saw him make that putt. Not necessarily, because it's Rory making the putt, but just to know you've sacrificed so much to get something and you finally achieve it. It must be just an emotional, just a roller coaster. So we can all relate to that. Iconic Masters, history made. Yes. Rory has played in 17 Masters. Yep. Time flies. I'm really happy for Rory. He's got that monkey off his back. So maybe, hey, might just catapult him to get the many more that he needs. He's had a decade of no winning at the majors. So good for him. I'm happy for him. All right, so let's get down to it. Make sure we get everybody in. First one didn't come with many notes, so we're just going to give it a cause and effect. Basically, 59 and 190 centimeters. So I have not been around centimeters for at least a few decades. So if you guys can let me know what 190 centimeters is, it might make a difference. Clubs are ½ inch longer than standard. Okay, so let's take a look at this and see what we have. And let me know if my mic needs adjusting. I've been having issues with this mic. All right. Can I use my keyboard? No keyboard. All right. Okay, so it looks like we're making some spacing. It looks like we might be starting too far down to create the room to carry some angles over. 6'2". Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. 6'3". Okay, so definitely big boy. World Industries Golf and more golf. Thank you, World Industries. Okay, so let's take a look at, I know he's got another video down here somewhere. Where is it? Is it here? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, definitely some reaching over. Limits the rotation. We're trying to stand up to create some room and we lose our posture. So I don't know. And this is what's tricky with these is because we don't know body limitations. Are you physically capable of turning? Is that an issue? But you can definitely see we have, this is nice. It's pretty close to 90. And I'm pretty sure that looks like a short iron. It doesn't say what club he's hitting. But the problem is we see where the censoredness is. And pull up these lines. Arches of the heel up. So there's quite a bit of weight on the heels. Now, when this occurs, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but basically what I have seen is if you start with a lot of the weight on the left side, naturally you want to be more of a flatter plane takeaway. When it's on the toes, you naturally want to just be more upright. It's not scientific. It's just things that I've seen. We can see because he is very bent over, we have a lot of plane work to use. So some of this positives, but the negatives about being so bent over is because your planes are so wide, now there's a lot of room for some issues to occur. But immediately we don't see that turn with the lower body. And it could just be because of the setup. I don't know what the range limitations are, but you can see those hands get way above, pretty steep right away. We get to the top of the swing because there's not a lot of turn. We have almost zero depth. So the depth you can see in Barney Purple, that depth is still way out in front. So this is going to be very challenging to make decent contact with. I'm not saying you can't make contact here, but there's just going to be a very slapping motion with the hands and arms, a lot of wrist manipulation to try and square the club face up. You do a relatively good job of getting that club closer to your secondary plane, which is nice, but you can see this triangle. Let's draw this in red. It's on the other side of your spine angle. So you can just see it's all hands and arms from this point. We stand up to make some room for our hands and arms to throw early. And because they throw early, you need more room. So what do? We stand up to create the room. And when you create the room, we get a loss of spine angle, and this will shift a lot of your power inefficiently because we don't rotate. We're just standing up and we rely solely on the hands. And you see the shoulders do a decent job of staying down. So that's basically the only way you can make contact with this. So, easy suggestion here is, if you like that setup as you do, bent over, you have to figure out how to turn more. Now, we're going to take a look at maybe the setup from the face on doesn't allow you to turn more. So let's take a look. So that ball position's on the right side. Chest is slightly ahead of the golf ball. Not too bad. Let's take a look at that forward press to see if we see any differences here. So forward press relative to, it's not too bad. I'd say that ball position is just a little bit too far back. Remember, natural shaft lean at impact with, let's say this is a mid iron, 7-iron, 6-iron, somewhere around there. You want about 12 to 13 degrees of natural forward press. So think about this. Let's say you start with 10 degrees. So let's say this is 10 degrees of natural or unnatural forward press. To add 12 to 13 on top of the 10, now you've got 23 degrees of forward press. That's way too much for an iron. So you're going to hit these low shots. So what are you going to have to do? You have to release that forward press that you've manipulated at the start somewhere in your downswing. So, just let that forward press happen naturally. So if you want this forward press, move the ball position slightly ahead to at least give you some room to carry some of that angle over. But this could play a part in it. I don't know if it does, just because I see that turn limitation immediately here. There's very little turn. I mean, if that's the most you can turn your shoulders, your hips are there. It could be a tight body. I don't know if you are on the computer all day, if you need some stretching, your hamstrings, back might help you stretch out. But if this is all you're capable of doing, unfortunately, you are stuck with a very hand manipulation position. Now, you might want to look at changing your address position if you're kind of like this gentleman, that you have some issues with rotation. Kind of what like Jim Vanitos teaches, where he just closes the stance up and tries to manipulate an inside out motion. That might help you out. But if you can turn, maybe stand a little bit taller and more on the center of your arches to help you establish a room to turn. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. I don't know if you're on. Let's see who stopped by. What's up, boss? I should have taken video today on the 9 I just played. Yes, take some videos, man. Send it to me. I like taking care of you guys. Seems like a steep takeaway. Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely this rotation issue. You need rotation, of bare minimum. Let's talk about bare minimums. If you want to have a somewhat repeatable motion where it's a nice balance between hands and body. Now, obviously, you don't want to be all body, because that becomes very robotic and you lose your flashy, your hands can't release as much with a very robotic motion. And on the contrary, you don't want to just an arm swing. It's a combination of both. So bare minimum, you're looking at 30 degrees of hip turn, a bare minimum of 60 degrees of shoulder turn. If you can get those two, that should provide you with enough depth to take that club back, unless you have some sort of rerouting action where you pull that club outside of you, reroute it, and come back in. So, we're talking about bare minimums. And I know that we have, thank you, James, I appreciate it so much. I know that we have had requests to make a video about what is like the bare minimum to hit golf balls with some success. So I think I'm going to make that this week and give you guys some goals to look at in your own swing to see if you can at least hit some of these pinpoints. Are you live every Sunday? Yes, except next Sunday. I'm covering for a couple of my coaches down in San Diego. So if you're in San Diego, you want a lesson, I'm there. But every Sunday, same time, 6 o'clock. Hello, I just sent my swing. I hope you can analyze it. Hey, Jose, thank you for sending it in. I definitely can analyze it, but it's going to be about a 2-week window. I've got my 10 today, and then I'm skipping next week because I'm out of town, and then the following week. So I'll get you the following week. So hopefully that helps you. Who was this? No name either. So hopefully that helps you, Mr. No Name. Let me know if that does help you. Look at that rotation. If you can't rotate for physical limitations, look at your setup, a little bit taller to initiate some rotations. If you can't do that, then change your setup so it's a little bit more, right foot back, close your whole body down to help you like establish some depth without establishing depth. That helps you. All right, next up. Now, you have to forgive me. I don't know if this gentleman's on right now. Jzafar. I don't want to butcher this name. So I'm guessing Jazar. Jazar. Let me know if you're on. Love your YouTube channel and your approach to breaking down golf swings. Would appreciate any feedback on Zack's swing. Currently a sophomore in high school, wants to play college. All right, good. Let's take a look. So I assume there's no physical limitations just because we're dealing with somebody that's what, 16, 17. Great looking swing, good tilting, good sequencing, holds off that finish very nicely. So that's really good. Let's look at the front point. Tiny bit of short forward press, a little too tilty, but let's see how he recovers. Okay, weight behind. Oh yeah, that's a good move right there. So he recovers very nicely. So this is a really good move to kind of show you here. So we know that we've got this forward press. Let me just tell you, I'm not against forward pressing if you can, make adjustments in your swing. If you can, great. But many times I see a lot of students that I deal with that have forward presses that just don't have the physical ability to make these adjustments. So we take a look at that spine angle. So we see a pretty significant angle here that he has to deal with. Now, remember the two options that we have when you have that's spine angle and face the shaft disconnection issue is you ideally want a little forward press, right? But not so much where you have to deal with this angle. So we have these two options that usually occur. So we have to split the difference between these two. And that's usually where people wind up. So their center of their chest usually winds up right there at impact if they carry these angles correctly. Now, that doesn't mean it's the be-all, end-all, because it's not necessarily your center point just getting over to the left side. It's also establishing correct tilt. So you don't want too much tilt as you get to the left side because now you're going to have some center point issues. But one thing I'd really like about this swing, just by looking at this one position, is we can see he's still in that spine angle, that yellow line that goes straight down, which is great. Now, this one move is beautiful because from here, he doesn't necessarily get leading with the left from the lower body down. You don't see the lower body driving so much. You see it shifting the weight over. But what he's also doing is he's changing the upper part of his body. So here, the upper part is leading, so it's facing above the ground. As he goes into the golf ball, you can see now it's leaning, so it's facing into the ground, which then shifts his low point, which is beautiful. So this is a great compensation. As he strikes the golf ball, look at where his center is. It's already met that red line, which is what usually occurs when he's trying to make up that angle. And he's carrying that angle over beautifully. So here we have a great angular momentum. We have conservation of energy. And here we just rotate and tilt slightly ahead. So that tilting action pushes his hands out in front and he carries that angle beautifully. So, all in all, I wouldn't really change anything in the swing. And obviously he just wants my opinion on the swing. I think it's a really good motion. So here's somebody that can work correctly with the tilting. Now, I don't know. I don't want to go and suggest changes. Let's keep it that way. But from the from the down the line, let's take a look here and see this motion. So we take it slightly bit inside and we know we're going to get that upper spine angle situated in this move here. So that's a really good move. He gets right over that. So he's driving down, leveling out his shoulder tilt so that allows that angle to be carried over correctly. So we see him dropping that club pretty good down to that golf ball. So slightly above the golf ball, which is great. And his hands stay on that. Now the camera angle might be changing this illusion because this looks like it's been filmed above head height, which will then change this illusion. So it won't be as far below plane. It'll probably be pretty close to being on plane. And we go straight through, gets out his own way. So we see he's holding his back brace line, staying in his spine angle, slight bit of hand release. But man, this is a really good swing. Great footwork. I mean, look at that, right toes up in the air, right heels up in the air, and he's driving the weight to the back left heel, maintain that posture. So all in all, I think this is a really good swing. If you need further help, forgive me, I can't say your name, but if you need further help in terms of like scoring better, let me know. I have a little stat sheet that I use that I give people. So if anybody's interested in the stat sheet, just let me know. Just email me and I'll send it to you. And it basically gets you to keep your stats for 10 rounds. And it will point out like what areas you're weak at. It could be short game putting, approach, anything. It's pretty detailed. It takes quite a bit of effort to learn how to use it in terms of what you should be keeping track of. But after 10 rounds, it just makes it so easy to see, okay, this is where I need to focus. And it also keeps track of mental mistakes, physical mistakes. So if you have a great swing, but you keep making mental errors, what's creating those mental errors and how can we avoid that? So really good motion. Yes, Zafar. Okay. I was close, right? Was hopefully I was close. Let me see. I missed somebody here. Hey Tony, what a crazy afternoon. Yes, it was definitely a great tournament to watch. Did I make it into the 10th? Let me see. If you got an email, I sent an email maybe a couple hours ago. So if you got an email, you're in. But it depends when you sent it. So let me see. Who else do we got here? Is he wearing yoga pants? I don't know, but if he hits it like that, I'm going to be wearing yoga pants. Yes, we would love your help. Okay, so I'm just going to call you Jay-Z just to make it easier. Jay-Z, send me an email. Yeah, perfect. info@liongolfacademy.com. I will send you welcome. I'll send you that email, that stat sheet, and you can just keep the stats. Send me the stat sheet when you've done with the stats, and I hope you kind of decipher what the weaknesses are. But great swing, great motion. Don't change a thing right now. It looks really good. Hope that helps you. Alan, I don't know if Alan's going to be on. He lives in the UK, so time difference. Let me see. Played golf on and off since being a junior, now 50 years old. We'll play that in the background. No physical restrictions with possible exception of flexibility. And he got down to a 5 handicap and maintained that for approximately 3 years until frustration got the better of me. And then I quit. Oh no. 10 years plus ago, he quit. Frequently visit the range annually for months at a time, only become frustrated again. Yep. This game can be frustrating. Two-way miss has been my nemesis, and I think it stems from learning to slide in order to gain distance as a junior. Okay, makes sense. I've been to many PGA instructors and read books, watched DVDs, endless YouTube videos, and hit thousands upon thousands of golf balls. Man, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? When I warm up against a rhythm at the range, my sensor strikes become extremely repeatable. Yeah, that sounds very normal. And unfortunately, if you like to go to the range a lot, this is where you can develop habits and you can get away with murder out there because you get into a rhythm. You know, the great thing about ball striking is you can start to get into rhythm pretty easily. But the negative thing about ball striking is you can get into a pretty good rhythm pretty easily. And what I mean by that is you can get away with more because you're able to time stuff easier because you're hitting golf ball, golf ball, golf ball. But when you change and go on the golf course, you hit a golf ball and then you wait for however long, 10 minutes or 5 minutes before you hit the next golf ball. So I would encourage you when you are practicing is to simulate more of golf course style to see your misses because I know it's boring, but hit a ball and sit there and drink a Coke or whatever you want to drink, and then go back 5 minutes later, hit another ball with a different club and see if you see these patterns that you do on the golf course show up when you practice. That's the best recommendation I can do for you. Now, in terms of your golf swing, let's take a look. So right away, I do see a ball position issue and a forward press issue. So you are going to have to compensate somehow. I don't know. He said he apologized for this dark. Okay, got to get a night scope out of here. Okay, so we do lose a little bit of this angle at impact, kind of standing up, create some room for the hands to go. All right, so, here's another one that's pretty common, unfortunately, is we got this forward press here. So again, look at that angle that he's got to deal with now. Plus, we've also got let's do Barney Purple. He's going to make an appearance somehow. Look at that ball position. So the ball position's on his outside of his, or just against his right side of his neck and his head. And we've got a forward press. So relative to the ball position, I mean, look at how much forward press he has relative to that ball position. Let's draw it in yellow. So the makeup for that is going to be here. So there's just a lot of lateral slide to occur. Now, the problem is when you have this much forward press and you've got to lateral slide to close that gap so you don't, deal off the club so much that you can't get the ball up in the air. Now your body's going to be moving left to get your center point to where that yellow line is. But what's that going to do for your ball position? Now your ball position is going to be way back over here if you do sequence correctly, which requires what to happen. Who's this? Who's coming to dinner? It's this guy. This guy has to get going to hit the golf ball. And now all of a sudden, to make room for that, guess who has to stand up to make room for it? And now who relies more on timing, which makes more sense now that when you go to the range, you get better timing. Your hands can learn a release point much quicker because they're hitting more balls consistently. Now we can develop a timing issue that you can't rely on the golf course. So we're going to keep those lines up. I know there's a lot of lines, but let's see the motion. So we're trying to get our weight over. You do get the weight over to that yellow line, which is predictable. But now look at your ball position. Your ball position's like almost off your right shoulder. So what has to go? Watch the hands. The hands have to hit the ball, right? So the hands lose their angle. You get that flippy release. So now even past, let's go right to impact. Look at the relationship between your shoulder tilt and your spine angle and your hands. So your hands are delayed by a few frames because the ball position is too far back. So I know that you're trying to make it work. And to get to a 5 handicap like this, you must have had some pretty good timing, and you must have great hand-eye coordination. So just by looking at this face on, you can tell why you lose posture. And when you start standing up, that's going to change your path of your club. Your club's going to be, wanting to work flatter because you stand up. So then your hand has to counter that and try to keep that more out in front of you. So now all of a sudden, not only do you get, flatter because you're standing up, but your hand has to compensate that. So now you're getting this like hooded feeling and you strike the ball. You can hit it heavy. You can hit it thin. You top the ball. You can get these sniping hooks because you're smothering it. You can get these weak fades. So there's just a lot of misses that are possible from this position. I probably don't even need to see this down the line, even though you sent it. But right here, look at the back brace line. There's your spine angle. And we start to, do the old standing up and losing the spine angle because you need some room. And you can see there's no daylight. Thank you. This is actually a good video. You can't see any daylight. So there's some positives here. Look how close your hands get to your right thigh as they're releasing. And then they come out back over here. So we see a lot of this, last second ditch effort to hit the golf ball. I think what can really help you is just your basics. Always resort to your basics. Is go to your face on. Make sure this golf ball position gives at least to the center of your chest. You don't need this, preset forward press. It's all related to ball position, your tilting, and the shaft angle. And if you are going to de-loft the club by sequencing correctly anyway, by 10 to 12 degrees, if you do it correctly, and you start by de-lofting it 13 to 14 degrees, you're going to have 26 degrees of de-loft. There's going to be no ball flight. So what do? We let go of that angle, or we fall back to try and add loft. So that's your two escape patterns from that point. So hopefully that helps you. Let's see. That swing looks good. Yes, it is a really good swing. Practice mats are flat. Fairways are usually not. That's correct. And hi, I'm Alan on my son's account. Okay, Alan. So good. We got you here. So let me know if that makes sense to you. I know it's, this isn't about swing overhauls. I'm not a fan of swing overhauls unless it's required. But most of these issues can be cured by changing your setup. But then you have to monitor your body to accommodate that setup. So this might not cure everything right away, but it will at least give you the patterns to now hold your angle a little bit better, hold your spine angle, give you the spacing that you don't have to fire your hand so soon. Doesn't mean you can just neglect that. So there's pre-swing and in-swing. So your pre-swing, make sure you're setting up better. And then your in-swing, maybe focus on retaining your angle better. So always choose one and one. Just try not to think too much. Thanks. You're welcome, man. Appreciate it. And brilliant. Thank you. No problem. How do I send in videos in? Would love for you to review my swing. So Ben, go to info@liongolfacademy.com. Send me face on down the lines. I won't be in next Sunday, but I will be 2 Sundays from now. And I believe there's a couple spots open for 2 Sundays. So as soon as you send it, you're guaranteed for 2 Sundays. If not, it might be 3 Sundays from now. So send that as soon as you can. What helps you subconsciously maintain spine angle so you don't have the lifting up yip? You'd have to look at what's causing that lifting up. No lift ups are the same. It could be, not being physically able to hold your spine, that's a completely different lift up. And then you might need the ball position back to help you get those hands to be more involved. So you have to look at identify what is causing your lift up. Some of the things that I do see that causes lift up is ball position too far back, ball position too far forward can also cause this because you have to, stand up to reach that ball that's way out on your left side. So just keep in mind where your ball position is relative to your tilt. That's the best way I can explain it. Draw your shoulder tilt and then your spine that's right in the middle, perpendicular to that, and kind of leave it around there, that ball position. Obviously, for the irons, you want a slight forward press. We're talking 2 to 3 degrees at the most. You don't need this, I've seen guys that have forward presses that are like 30 degrees, and they wonder why they can't get the ball up in the air, and their hands are really flippy. So always look at ball position and your forward press. Awesome. Thanks. You got it. I want to do swing overhaul. Ooh, man, that's like the last suggestion I make to anybody is a swing overhaul. Whenever a new student comes to me and they have something they want to work on, I say, look, you've got 2 options. You can have, this option, which will get you through for a week or so, and then you just have to readdress it. And you have another option that is a committed, life-altering decision to redo your whole golf swing. Now, if I get somebody that's 6 months into their swing, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if I get somebody that's 30 years into the swing, it's probably not going to happen. So just be careful what avenue you want to go down. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Alan. Let's see who is next. All right. This one is Norm. No, not Norm. We have Max. Okay, Max. Hopefully Max is on. Max sent me down the line. So this is kind of like a revisit. I think Max sent me a video a few years ago, and I helped him out. Sent you my swing a few years ago. We had a very helpful insight. 4th year golfing this year. 2-way miss going on right now. All I have recent is down the line. Sorry, no problem. Okay, let's take a look. That's a good swing, man. All right. Okay, so the club does waver a little bit. You see the club gets, crossing the line a little bit, and then it starts to reroute to compensate that, and then it gets a little bit below your plane line. So this could cause a 2-way miss, specifically with your hands. I could see that 2-way miss occur. And since we don't have a face on, we're going to have to assume your ball position's okay, but Max, you want to just make sure that ball position is, staying relative to your tilting. Let's take a look at your planes real quick. And let's zoom in as well so we can get a better view. All right, let's do a quick little check. Okay, pretty athletic setup. Good takeaway. Tilting is pretty close. You can see that shoulder tilting is raising up a little bit, which would want to push your hands lower. So you might have to feel that to get your hands to go up to counteract that. And then going up will also get you to cross a line. Club face is slightly, that's pretty good. Dropping the club back down, gets a little steep, and then it gets a little shallow right there. So yeah, there's just a little bit of, you do a good job of maintaining your angles though. You get definitely an increase of shoulder tilt, still in the same posture. Let's back it up. Yeah, it's pretty good. I would say, Max, if you want to just go, right here is probably where you're looking at maintaining that shoulder tilt to be a little bit more down to help you elevate these hands more naturally, so you don't have to feel like you have to add some elevation, because that last second elevation there, you can see from here to here, your shoulders stop turning and tilting, and the hands raise up to make up that position. So you definitely get a taller hand position, and along with that, your hands, remember you're fighting momentum too. So if you pull the hands back, it's going to carry further than you think. You might start to cause this crossing the line. Now, I've seen crossing lines work, so it's nothing wrong with crossing the line, but your compensations as you drop that club in the slot, now all of a sudden that club is going to go below your plane. And when it's below your plane, that's where some issues could occur. So I think without getting too technical with you, just think about the left shoulder maintaining this posture more and feel like the hands are just going along with the turn and tilt naturally. You don't have to get that extra lift at the top. And then check this position. If you see this club is still pointing this way, get used to it feeling like it's pointing either at the target, or for you, even feel like it's laid off a little bit to get you dropping the slot. I'm always a fan of golfers that can get the club. Let's back it up here. Let's say this is a backswing. I'm always a fan of getting golfers right there. And that's all they really need. They've established their turn and tilt. Their hands are in front of their chest. The club, even if it stops here, it's a lot easier to reroute this motion to match your plane than it is to reroute a club that's back there to match your plane, because gravity is going to kick over. That club head is going to start to weigh more, and it pulls below your plane. And then you have to rely on a little bit of this flipping down at impact. Then you might have to stall out to catch that. So hopefully that helps you, Max. I know it's not what maybe it is what you wanted to hear, but I miss off the toe a lot. Max, have I seen your swing? Because if not, it's very hard to give you ideas. So send me your swing. I'll make it a little bit easier for you. Just shot an 86 on 18 last Friday. Then I played 9 more and shot 1 over. Great. 37 is probably the best 9 I've shot in 20 plus years. That's awesome. Felt like I finally had my body loosen up in the hips and torso. Good. Good for you. Congratulations. Not a bad swing despite a slight lift and bit shut. Yep, you got it. Oh, perfect. You on. Let's see, Max. Jonathan Shoup, what are 2 good stretches to do to loosen those areas pre-round so I can have my mechanics feel more smooth like they did? I would say just stretch the hamstrings. Hamstrings are very important to maintain your posture, specifically nowadays when you are like me, that's stuck a lot of the times in this office. I do go out and teach, but it's not as much as I used to just because of my businesses that I have to run. So hamstrings are always the first to go. Hamstrings are good. Core, work on your core. If you can work on your, front of your core and the back of your core, like the lower back muscles. So just stretch those out. That might definitely help you maintain your posture. Biggest thing is losing posture, but then you have to look at why you're losing posture. So it's not that easy of a suggestion. It's my swing. Yeah, Max, don't rebuild your swing. You don't need to rebuild. All right. Let's see who's up next. All right. We have Norm. Okay, Norm. No notes for Norm. Norm, are you on by any chance? Let me know if you are. I DoorDash full time, so yeah, for sure. That's the problem, man. Technology has made us become soft. We just sit and we lose our posture. Technology is not good for the golf swing. All right, Norm, if you're on, okay, Norm, perfect. You're here. Okay, Norm, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? You look like a big, strong guy. Do you have any range of motion issues? Do you have limitations that I need to be aware of? You have a huge amount of shoulder turn. Okay, let's start it out. All right, so this looks like a fairway wood of some sort. We have a 4 press with a fairway wood, which is pretty tough to negotiate in the golf swing. We have some big shoulders here, strong guy. So do we really need all that turn? Let's take a look. So there's our goal to close that gap. No range of motion issues. Good. Played football in college. Yeah, I would hope so. Okay, let's take a look. So Norm, just so you know, 4 presses with I assume this is a fairway wood unless my eyes are really bad. You don't want that much 4 press with a club that's not designed to go into the turf. So if you look at the bottom of your clubs, you have a bounce. Now, woods and fairway woods and drivers, they don't really have as much bounce because the sole plate's pretty long. So you don't want to hit down on those. Hybrids, they're designed more like the middle, like if an iron and a wood had a baby, and you get the best of both worlds. So with this guy, you definitely want to set up so your ball position is maybe even, keep your setup there, but move the ball position so it's more out in front of you. But if you take a look at your rotation, you have a pretty good amount of rotation here. So right there, to me, like that is plenty rotation, but you see your arms are kind of trapped with that rotation. There's no independent motion of your arms. So I don't know if that's a limitation issue, an old injury, but if you can get your hands to rise up and give you a little bit more independent of that turn, because here, if you take a look, we're going to draw this in blue. Your spine angle at this point is pretty good. So we have a nice upright spine angle. So that basically means your center of your circle based on your spine angle is pointing down at the golf ball. But if you take a look when you go back a little bit further, we keep turning, we keep turning, we keep turning. And all of a sudden you have a huge amount of shoulder turn, which I don't think you really need because you're pretty strong. And all of a sudden what that does is the more you turn, the more you're going to start to pivot towards your target. So now you take a look at your whole body is leaning kind of back here, which now points your center of the circle down. Plus you have a forward press. So now we got another big issue. So we've got to first, okay, what move do we need to make to right this, forward, the shaft lean, or excuse me, the body lean that's pointed towards the target. We're going to have to right that up somehow. And the only way to right it up is to kind of fall back. Now, when you're falling back with a forward press, you got some issues. You better hold on to that angle. But this club isn't designed to strike down like an iron. So it's very hard to get rid of this. So let's take a look as we make that first move. We see the lateral move going left, which is good. You're trying to close that gap. So you see your center of your chest gets to the closing. So you get right in that yellow line, which is great. But look at your angle. And you're leaning this way with a wood. That's going to be tough because now you're going to be going straight into the ground with a wood. And that's going to break something. So your body's saying, hey, look, I'm not doing that. I've got to figure out a way to break this. So what do we leave ourselves with as we start to all of a sudden look at that left side past impact? What happens to your left arm? You can see how it breaks away to absorb, to pull that club back in so you don't go straight into the ground. So we don't take advantage of that huge rotation because you're just way too tilted into the ground, specifically with a wood. Now, you might get away with this with like a pitching wedge. You probably hit the pitching wedges decent. 9's pretty good. And the longer the club gets, if you have the same neurological system swing in you, you might notice the longer the club gets, man, this thing gets crazy because you probably get pretty steep too, I would imagine. It's hard to tell without that down the line. But I would imagine you're probably a very steep driver. It might be this vicious slice. Or you come across it and use your big shoulders to save it in your hands, time it right, and you have this pull, or you get away with it and you hit it perfect, and then you're confused. It's like, well, what really works? So it's very hard to do that. Let's see. Got some more updates from Norm. Working with the physio for more flexibility. Good. Well, man, I tell you what, you have a lot of, look at that turn. That's a huge amount of turn. So I would encourage you not to turn as much here and get some more independence with your arms to take that club a little bit higher. So you can now don't have to worry about, tilting too far towards the target and tilting. 51, correct the longer clubs gets worse in my swing. Okay. And so, I mean, it's hard to tell without the down the line what your plane is. I would assume it's pretty steep, but make those adjustments. Move the ball position more out in front so it matches your tilt. Try not to turn as much. Get some arms into it as well. This looks like a very, I don't want to say this in a negative light, so I don't want to offend you, but this looks like a very robotic swing, and you should be just destroying the golf ball because you have the body type to do so. So limit your turn, limit things down, and your body will take care of it for you. So I hope that helps you, Norm. Let me know if you need help. Is that LA, by the way? It looks like Griffith Park or Pasadena somewhere. Let me know. All right. Next up, let's watch this one. All right, we got a nice zoom in over here. All right, this is Nikos. Nikos, welcome. If you're on, let me know. Are you in Valencia? What golf course is that? How do you even limit body rotation? Yeah, that's a good problem to have, right? It just takes repetition. My biggest problem with me is I turn a little bit too much, but my hands go way too far back. So for me to fool myself, I need to think like my hands are going to hip height, knee height. And when I think about that and I say, I am for sure my hands only went to hip height. Next thing you know, I'm back over here. So you just have to fool yourself a little bit. Vista Valencia. I never played Vista. Less steep for that mean a wider backswing. Less steep for that mean a wider backswing. Sandra, is that a question or is that a comment on a swing? Yo, what's up, Sandra? Let me know if that's a question. Okay, so Nikos, 50 years old, 6'2", took up the game for the first time 6 years ago. Started with the handicap of 28, now at 8.1. Wow, that's pretty good. I play every week and had 2 lessons when I first picked up the game, from shunning the game for 35 years, and I'm now addicted. Okay. I attached my swing for review. Prior to golf, I was a state rep in tennis. I know my swing is wrong. I don't use wrong. It swings and compensations, man. You can you can nitpick on any swing, but it feels easy, natural, and repeatable to me. Good. To improve on my iron swing, do you have any advice on what I should take the time to focus on using the 33-7 iron? Okay, let's take a look at this. So starts pretty bent over, gets back upright. It's like really good hand-eye coordination. So let's take a look at the beginning and let's draw our lines. I don't know if he gave me a, no, he didn't. Okay, so we just have a down the line. So unfortunately, just remember, if you do send me videos, it's really important to get that down the line, because without knowing your ball position, we're just giving you like half the battle. So ball position is very key to figure things out as well. So we can see this setup is definitely some heel-based setup, calls from a pretty severe bent over posture. I don't know if these clubs are built for him or if he just feels comfortable like that. Okay, so we see the hands trying to stay on that lower plane line, which is fine. We see immediate loss of shoulder tilt. And we come on up, hands suck inside. So we do see the loss of shoulder tilt. Then he stands up. But look at that. He hits that top plane line pretty good. So far, this is a pretty decent compensation. He gets the club deep enough. So that's pretty nice. The loss of shoulder tilt can be corrected, but then his hands might move in a different motion. So far, things are working together. We do see standing up slightly to allow that turn. To start from that low and keep that turn tilt relationship is very hard. So I understand why he stands up. We get the club moving right immediately. So we look at that triangle check. Let's do this in red. Let's see if it follows that little plane. Nope, it comes right over the top. Okay, so arms do cross too far to the back. And when you try and reconnect them while you're turning, that's when that arm moves right of that shoulder, our view right. He does a decent job, though. You can see he's falling in the slot. It is a little bit steep. And we know that if we extend this shaft line, see how it falls inside the ball. And we know it's a little bit steep. And we come on through. He keeps it on that plane. He stalls out to catch up his hands. So I would assume maybe some ball position issues, but we do see a pretty significant loss of posture. So things are moving towards him. Now you have to look at, let's back this up. Let's go right at impact right there. Let's clear these lines up. So one thing you'll notice about all golf swings, and this is why setup is very important. So arches of the heels straight up to the sky. You notice where the arches of the heels connect. They connect right to the center of your hips because that's your center point. But if you start the swing and you're not connected to the center point, you see how his hips were back here, the center of his hips were back here. What did he have to do to get to be balanced? He had to move everything towards that center point. By moving everything towards it, now you stand up to create the room, and by your body. So your body controls where your hands go. So by his body moving into it, his hands will need to learn how to adjust for that and make the compensations to go along with that movement. So he's able to do it, but he's potentially robbing himself of some fairly good consistency and some distance gains by this motion. So then I would ask him, it's like, okay, well, what are you looking for to change in your golf swing? And it sounds like he wants to go to, the next level. So my first recommendation is to go right down into impact right there. And now let's build your setup to be more like this. So you would want to, this is naturally where you want to get back to. So you would want your setup to resemble something like this, which might require, since he's taller, which might require a little bit of a longer club, maybe change the lie angle a little bit to help you out, because this looks like somebody that's forming to a club, and it could be short arm ratios. You don't know what his ratios are, but something like this, where at least he can return back to where he's comfortable in. His hands will be up. So he definitely needs a little longer clubs to help him. But at least if you start there, your odds of staying centered are there. Your odds of maintaining your spine angle will be there. The odds of creating the spacing for your shoulders to turn and tilt will be there. So things will be there for you to build around. But if you're starting back here, if you're starting here, look at how much his body has to move. And look at the angle of the club. The club has changed angles completely. It's gone from here to here. This is a pretty severe change. And I know it moves just because you're turning and you're tilting, but we can see he's not turning. So that's out of the equation. The tilting's relative to the turn. So this is just a centeredness issue. This is a weight distribution issue. So you might want to look at your setup. Long story short, closer, feel the arches of the heels support the center of your hips, and then go from there. But you might have to look at the clubs too. So hope that helps you. Let's see if we can catch up here. All right. Fanned wrist and too much knee flexion. Not sure if you're talking about this. It could be the same one we just talked about. Pivoting around rear hip. I hope we're talking about the same guy. I'm not. Practice one arm takeaways to get that plane up. You have to look at why the plane is there. I would suggest, for anybody that's trying to make swing changes, all swings are compensation based. So you don't want to address anything with the hands and arms because they're there to either support the compensations or be a part of those compensations. They're there for a reason to save your swing. They're the only reason why you can hit the ball. So why are they doing what they're doing? You have to look at your body. So why isn't your body capable of staying in its posture? Then you ask yourself, is this physical limitations or is it because you're not set up correctly? So, you have to look at what causes what. Don't just jump down to impact or don't just look at planes. It's like there's a reason why planes change. There's a reason why things happen at impact. Never change impact. Always change the cause of the impact. Nikos here, setup is where it is at. Nikos, is this you? Because it's confusing me with Sandra, but I assume this is you. That's a great explanation about being Sandra. Good. Glad it helped, Ellis. Well, so obvious. Love it. Perfect. So this makes sense. Good. Tony, does he roll his wrists immediately? Yeah, you can see that, right? So you see as he takes that club back, I don't know if he rolls them as much because if he rolls them, he's still keeping the club face pretty relative to his spine angle. If he were to roll it, this club would already be fanning open. So it doesn't look like he's rolling it. I think the club goes below the plane because he's so set up on his heels that it's just easier to turn on your heels. So by turning a lot initially, it's going to change the path of everything this way. So it could give the illusion. But always look at club face if you want to look at why things are rolling or not. So, all right. Thank you, Nikos or Sandra, whatever you go by. Next up, from Clackamas, Oregon. Oregon's got some funky names. Hope this finds you well. Let's take a look at this swing while it plays. I tried 3 times. Perfect. We got through. Third time's a charm. 64, love golf, major stiffness, never been flexible. Not all that coordinated. I've been playing recreationally for 40 years. Back issues, neck issues. I believe I have hit driver straight 247 once in my life. I want to hit driver 220 regularly. I took lessons a few times, but not recently. I felt the lessons were more geared towards someone more younger and flexible. Yes. Okay, let's take a look. That's why golf swings are so unique. We have so many things that separate us from individuals. It's a lottery, what works for you and what doesn't. Just stay with what you're naturally able to do and work within that, and then change your goals accordingly. A lot of this is goals. Okay, so we take a look at this. I like your setup in terms of the hands being in front or connected to your chest. Let's see here. We do fall back slightly and cut across it. Okay. I don't think this one was a down the line either, so we'll have to see. Oh, you're on, John. Perfect. Close enough. Oregon, near Portland. My dad lives in Astoria, so he's near you. I'm off balance. Yes, you are. So we'll talk about this real quick. So I like the fact that you are keeping things relative to your tilt, which is great. Right, so we have this here. We have this here. Man, it's textbook. So we take a look at this at impact. Now we know we've got these rotation issues. We've got these mobility issues. So we're not going to expect miracles here, but we are going to try and address, ways to get you to hit the ball a little bit further. So I assume that we can move laterally to help you out, which is something that's great. And so we can take a look at your turn as you get to the top. You can see there isn't much turn, right? We're stuck with what we have. So yes, you can do the the stretching and the mobility exercises, but let's be real. Let's just use what we have here. You can do that on the side to maybe help you get the turns going. But as you strike the golf ball, you see your upper body is going to start to fall back. And what it's doing is it's trying to add loft to the club. So there's your upper body, you're falling back, and right there is where you strike it. So you can see the club is still connected to your tilting and turning, which is great, but your centeredness is falling back. Now, this is caused by your lower body moving this way. Now, if you want to try and gain a little bit of distance, the reason you're falling back is to get the ball airborne. I think the number one reason, when I first was introduced to club fitting, I said the number one club fitting recommendation for amateurs is get them 13 to 14 degree drivers, because they just don't get the ball up. And the higher you can get the ball up, the further you can hit it. Now, it's not the case all the time, but a majority of the time it is. So here we have a great setup. I think if you want to keep the ball where it is, that's fine. But a simple tilting change can really change the game for you. So in other words, keep everything relative to where you are. Get that tilting to be a little bit more down, which will then connect your hands and that golf ball together. Now you don't have to worry about falling back to hit that golf ball to add the loft, right? So we've got the loft situation taken care of. Now when you take your motion back, instead of focusing on staying centered and turning, get your whole body to move. Let's get some lateral shift going on here because of your limited rotation. So feel like the whole body moves, and it might feel like you're swaying. Hey, who cares? The goal is to get you to hit the ball a little bit further. We've already taken care of your loft at starting point. So we're going to hope that carries over. But as you take that club back, I would prefer to see you get a little bit of this left shoulder to move back and your hips to move back, and not worry about turning as much, but feel like the whole body's moving. So we can get some lateral ground forces, because we can't focus on rotational ground forces with you. So lateral, and then come on back, and you can still get that same motion, but get the whole body to come on back too. So we're starting to use your body weight as well to help you. So I know that's kind of like a shortcut, but we have very limited stuff that we can work with you in terms of your rotation and everything. But I think if you give that a try and feel like you're just tilting the shoulders slightly, which will move your weight to the right anyway, which is good, and then just go ahead and move just a little bit. Now, we don't want to start, swaying like a pirate, but just a little bit. So feel like that left shoulder's maybe getting to the right knee, and then get the whole body back over and give that a try. That might actually increase your rotation through the ball too, because once you get that weight transfer, there's only one way to go, is to transfer and turn. It's more natural, just like throwing a ball. So hopefully that can make more sense to you, and you might give that a try. So give that a try and let me know in a follow-up for me. Let's take it up here. Man, I missed a bunch of these. Sorry, I keep missing these. Okay, I was over here. That is not a 185cc driver. What, this guy? No, I hope it's not 185. Be tough to read. Goonies? Yeah, Goonies, you got it. I see he actually plays Astoria Country Club, which in Goonies is the whole reason why the kids went to go see for that treasure. I have 11 degree driver. Okay, I mean, give it a try with this, because, by you getting that tilting, you're trying to add loft to the club as you strike it. So get the tilt and see if that driver helps you. You might see the ball flight get a little bit higher. If you need to add loft, just get a new head. Just, go wherever you can and ask for like a 12 or 13 degree head. Even if it's ladies, who cares, man? The goal is just to get you to hit it further. So get some lateral shift going, get a little bit more loft in your club. That might help you out. All right. Who do we have left? Okay, we got 2 left. How am I on time? All right, we got enough time. All right, next up, we already did that one from down the line. Okay, get your night goggles out here. we gotta decipher this one. Okay, this is from Derek. Derek, let me know if you're on. I appreciate it. I got back into golfing last year. After a 5-year break, I've mainly been going to the range and practicing in my backyard besides a couple rounds last year. I've been trying to work on my tempo and getting full swing back. I have had an issue where I start my downswing too soon, causing more of a half swing, and my sequencing is off. Recently, I narrowed my stance a little bit with my irons, and I believe this has helped with my weight shift sequence, but I could be wrong about that. Usually I hit pretty straight or small fades. When I miss, it fades farther, but I don't think it's as quite a slice. My really bad misses are pull hooks. Okay, so there's definitely a path issue. Sorry if these are too dark. It's so I can know. You know what? We like challenges here. And you know, Barney Purple is going to stand out beautiful. Let's go take a look at the down the line real quick. See if it is a path issue. Okay, yeah, a little steep, a little path issue. Yeah, see the rerouting. You're trying to reroute it. A little posture loss. You know, when you lose that posture, it's tough to reroute enough to lose that posture, because you can see as you start to lose the posture, you know, you start to stand up. The hands and arms want to work with you standing up, so the hands and arms will also raise up, and you're trying to pull them down. So you're probably counteracting that force, and you can see that it is very, you know, it's steeper, and you're definitely coming out over the top, and that will definitely result in some pulls. You know, path left with the club face, matching that path left will be a pull. Or you can get some wild motions too. Maybe the occasional, you know, rope hook, or definitely banana balls. Okay. So now let's look at the face on and see if we see any evidence of why we're not capable of this. Thank you, Tony. Can I work and send it? Yeah, for sure. I'd give it a couple of weeks, John, because you know, a couple of weeks is good enough to, you know, not fly through the change, but you definitely want to take your time and get these changes right and feel like you're swaying over. But yeah, definitely send me an update. Sorry about the darkness. I typically can't go out until the kids. Hey, man, I'm just happy you got it to me. 67-year-old Bonner longer missed the cut by one stroke in the Masters this year. Yep, this was his last Masters. Yeah, isn't that amazing? I think he's played in what, 6 decades or something like that. He's played professional golf. He is just unbelievable to watch. And you know what? He only hit the ball. What was it, like 245? So granted, distance helps, but you know, a 67-year-old's out there hitting the 245, and he played how he did. Just shows you that distance can be overrated, specifically for us amateurs. We don't need a bunch of stuff out there. Okay, so let's take a look. How's your tilting? Hands are somewhat connected. So we do have a forward press. Now remember, forward presses are okay with a iron, maybe a little bit too much forward press. Now, think about this. So if your shoulders tilted too much, you know, that could potentially lead to steepness because there's not a lot of turn. So we'll have to take a look. So we see immediately the hands kind of go on their own journey back here. So there are already, you know, I've seen the early set. This is an early set. It's okay as long as the hands are keeping their relation with the turn, which they are. You know, I've seen guys over here. I've actually seen guys over here too. So it really doesn't matter at this point, as long as they keep in relation. So you do a pretty good job. We see a little bit of raising up. Again, we see a pretty good turn. So this is good. Let's go back over here. We can kind of see the shoulders are there. Hands are out in front. This is actually really good. So I really like this position here. Not a lot of sway going on here. Pretty adequate turning. We're coming on through. We get to that impact line. Let's see how we get to the impact line. So there's impact line. We're doing all Barney Purple for you just because it's so much easier to see. Impact line, we meet it with the lower body and upper body at the same time. So there's a little bit of sequencing, but that could also be because you started with too much tilt at the start. You don't want to get too much tilt by sequencing. But the good thing is here, your centeredness is just slightly ahead of the golf ball, which is okay. And then your hands, okay. It looks okay from this angle in terms of the cause and effect. So from down the line, you know, I do see that plane issue. So let's take a look at your setup real quick. Barney Purple stands out so beautifully there. Okay. Now let's keep an eye on this. They're going to do this in yellow. There's the center of the hips. Let's see what happens. An impact. Yeah, the centeredness, that's more of your left butt cheek. So your centeredness is definitely moving up, and we do lose that posture. So yeah, you want to look at that starting point. So we lose the posture. We're coming in by this degrees. That will definitely affect your arms moving up. So yeah, posture could be an issue that you want to just try and, you know, resolve a little bit easier. Secondly is this takeaway. So immediately we see this shoulder, you know, going up. Now, remember, relationships. So the shoulders would like, if you want to keep things tight, and it looks like you're physically able to do it, if you want to keep things tight, you want to rotate or tilt the shoulders around its axis. So this is where it's connected. At this point, you want that shoulder to be a little bit more connected, which will default the hands to be lower. So if you look at the angles here, let's do this a little bit perpendicular there. So we're looking at like this angle here. That's about as long as your arms are. And take a look at this here. They're about the same, right? So there's your arms. So that shoulder tilt keeps you on the lower plane longer, and it also changes your weight distribution. Now, it could be raising up because your setup might not be accommodating for a centered takeaway. So I think if you just want to take a look at your setup, make sure that that first initial tilting can happen naturally. So you want to make sure that your hips are at least being supported by the arches of the heels. So move the feet back slightly to get to the center of your hips, which will then give you the spacing and the centeredness to stay connected while you turn and tilt. And then that should at least put you in a position from the top where you're not fighting, staying centered. You're not going to lose your spine angle. Obviously, it's not going to be a quick fix. You're going to have to just go through the motions and feel it. But that's just what I see there. So hope that helps you. Yeah, good positions there. Definitely has some good, you can see the bones there. It's really good. Good width, good turn. That's dedication to practice into a net at night. Oh, yeah. You know what I call that? I call that married life with children. You just get out whenever you can. In snow, it doesn't matter. All right, last up. And this is a revisit. And I think this is only, okay, good. We have here. Okay, definitely can work on the posture to start. You got it. And just let me know. So it might take, a couple weeks to get used to it, but you want to monitor your tilting based on your posture. Can you stay relative to your tilt? And you can only really do that if your body can allow it. So, feel the pressure. If you get that tilting and you start to feel some pressure, like stretch pressure, that's your body saying, hey, I can't quite get there because this is too tight. And that's where you start to, elongate that side. So you might need to stretch accordingly. And it's hard to tell unless, I go inside of your brain, which is not possible. Okay, resubmission. This is James. I got another swing submission after taking your advice from last time. Be working on getting the hands higher. Good. At the top of the swing, I feel like I'm not stuck as much as before. It's still flipping the golf ball. Currently, this is a pull and thin. And this is with an 8 iron. All right, let's take a look. Let's zoom in. Okay, much better, James, getting those hands higher. So good job. So if anybody doesn't remember James, his natural tendency was to take this club very low. And that matches planes. So let's take a look at the planes. Oh, yeah, that's so much better. Good job. He was down, I kid you not, he was down to like here. And he would get very stuck and he'd have to stand up and flip. So that's really good. Now we come on in. Let's take a look. Body's in the way now. Yeah, so pretty significant loss. And this is just, the old neurological system kicking in. And he's learned how to hit it from there. So you can see that there's very little spacing down here. Definitely want to look at your setup too. These lines are pretty big. I don't know why they're so big. Okay, arches of the heel straight up. So we can see we're still, we're not supporting that center hip joint right there. That's where you want to support it. So let's watch that center hip joint. Boom, right as he, look at that. Right as he strikes it, there, guess what happens to that center hip joint? It goes right there. So we lose, we come into it. Let's see if we can decrease these lines. These are ridiculous. So we lose posture. So we're coming in this. Now look at that. And we come in, we start to stand up. So these two are relatives. So the difference between this one and this one is probably the same. Right? So definitely a posture issue when you started your swing. So without getting too technical with you, I love the changes you made. Really good with the arms. You've got to get these hips. Man, that's just ridiculous. Look how small that is. We got to get these hips being supported by the arches of the heel. So pull these feet back right about there. Get the arches of the heel to support that hip. You can keep the same spine angle, but you'll have so much more spacing. Your Your centeredness will be connected to your hips, so you won't lose the posture. You won't crash into the golf ball, taking away real estate. So your hands have to, flip at the impact position. But again, this is not going to be a easy thing. It's not going to just all of a sudden. Well, it could. I shouldn't say it not. Let's say you back up and you have the room. It could just be the thing you're missing, and you're like, oh my god, I got so much room. I can actually turn more. So that's the ideal thing that would happen in an ideal world. Or it could just be like, okay, well, I'm standing further back, but I'm still shaft humping. Okay, well, it's probably because you're so used to it, you got to get used to the new top position. So if that's the case, at home, you want to just put a little line there. Once you corrected this, let's say your arch of the heel supporting this, can you stay in that back brace line? Right there, you should already be in the back brace line and your posture be a little bit over. But now you'll have the room for you to turn and tilt and not rely so much on your hands and arms. So, but you notice the theme of all of these swing submissions. It's not necessarily like in-swing stuff. It's you give yourself the positions to move based on your setup. And if your setup's inefficient, it's a crapshoot. I'm not saying it can't work. It does work. I've seen it work wonderfully for people that can manipulate and counterbalance that weight issue at the starting position, ball position issues. There's so many people that can do great things from weird places. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but the odds of that happening are pretty much against you unless you have some sort of phenomenal hand-eye coordination. So always look at your basics. Let's see. I'll definitely grind out some changes. Good. I've been working on getting my hands high at the top of the swing. Okay, we just got that. I'll be working on stretching too. Good. For sure. Good. Can't wait to walk down the range Sunday and see everyone getting stuck and we end up playing since Rose. You know what? It's a double-edged sword. It keeps people like me in business, But the good-heartedness of me is like, man, it's just such a simple thing. Change your setup and things, it's not there's no magic move. There's no, like I said in my last video, if you run into people that say they've created this new thing, that they've discovered this new law, this new principle, that's just jargon. All right. Nice looking swing. Okay, I'll try and work down the range. Good job, James. Solid platform to begin with. Yes, he does. I'll try to work on my posture. Perfect. All right, guys. That's it for me. I won't be in next Sunday. I will be in the Sunday after. So if you want to send me videos, info@liongolfacademy.com. Face on down the line. Appreciate your support as always. And I will see you next time.